So I'm here with Lauren Crisman. Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
You want to tell folks a little bit about yourself, where you are, and then we'll kind of get into our conversation about your approach to starting to implement the next generation standards.
Absolutely. So I'm Lauren Crisman. I'm an elementary principal in Fort Plain Central School District. Um, we have been working over the last year with teachers to really start to understand the transitions that have occurred with the next generation's learning standards. And this summer, we're starting to put pen to paper and how we're going to adapt to make those transitions successful for kids.
All right. So we want to get into some of the specifics about how you've approached it.
Sure. So, as I said last year, it was a lot of building capacity, raising awareness in terms of really understanding what the foundational shifts were with the new standards, talking about what the assessment shifts may be, kind of predicting what that could look like. We did a lot with the crosswalks that were provided because those really highlighted the shifts. So I felt like my teachers were really well developed in their understanding of what looks different between Common Core and Next Gen, which is the first step in really moving on to being people who interpret the standards is how are they different. And then this summer, we started to actually draft some of the curriculum changes we're going to make.
Okay. So you want to talk us through a little bit of that?
Okay, so we had a 3-day summer retreat open to all K through 8 educators. We had 36 teachers attend, so that's great attendance for summer, 3 days in August. Um, we took a look again at deconstructing the standards just to get them in a frame of mind for how to understand the depth of knowledge required for each standard. And we used some of the things that you had shared with us in our March 13th regional training. So we revisited that. And then we did some work with other standards that we had them just play around with. We didn't do all of the standards because that would take forever, but we wanted them to understand the process of how to do this.
Do you want to share your screen? Would it help for? I wonder if it would help for
Oh,
people
yeah.
to see what you're looking at.
Yep. Now, can you see again? Let's see. Can you see now?
I sure can. Perfect.
Okay. So we took a look at the sample you gave us, and then we had started to do some on our own. So we did this a few times, had them work in multi-grade level teams just to try to really broaden their understanding of how standards grow over time, so they weren't just working in their lens of their one grade level. So we did a lot with that, and then we did a gallery walk and talked about what they found as interesting, questions they still had. And when we crafted the teaching points, we started to have them frame their mind around what needs to happen first, second, next, and last. So really thinking about sequencing, because scope and sequence is important when you're developing curriculum. So we did a lot with that the very first morning. That was pretty much the whole morning of our retreat. Then we took a break and we came back and we started to talk about how to prioritize, and we used the tool that was given to us, I think, by your team, the criteria for prioritizing.
Yep.
And we got some of these pieces from that boot camp that I attended in the Capital Region. So we worked with understanding what the tool meant and then how to use it. And then we had teachers prioritize all of their ELA and math standards that afternoon. So from 12:30 to 2:30, that's all they were doing. BOCES had begun the work but not finished. I was articulate with my teams that we're going to be drafting this year, so it's okay not to be perfect, but my expectation was by the end of the first day, we were prioritized. So we couldn't belabor points because that's what happens as teachers get stuck and argumentative in everything. And we just couldn't. We need to get off the dock. So we got everything prioritized in one afternoon. And I said, this is our draft. We can reprioritize as the year goes on. So that was day 1. And looking back to day 2, let's see. Sorry, I'm scrolling fast. This was a drafting day. So we introduced the essential question, which is how do we deliver a cohesive curriculum? I wanted to get teacher buy-in. So we had them all kind of use that written conversation protocol where they wrote on a Post-it and then they passed the Post-it and the next person expanded. And by the end, that had gone around their full table. We had tables share. What does it mean to have cohesive curriculum? And they had great ideas about just alignment of assessments, common teaching strategies. So they were coming up with all the right things, which was great because that was the segue into the work I wanted them to do that day. So we developed what cohesive curriculum meant. And from there, we started talking about how do we get started. And so can you see this template we have on your screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what we used. We had them list their prioritized standards. They had to do their learning target statements, which were the objective students will be able to, as well as the student perspective, an I can statement. And then we had them focus on teaching points of emphasis. And we started to talk about assessment. However, I said that's the work they're going to do all year in their team curriculum times, because assessment is much more comprehensive than, I didn't want those generic things of like check for understanding. I really want concrete ways to measure mastery. So they just started to talk about if something was in place, we would articulate that on this document. If not, we left it blank, knowing we need to come back to how do we measure the learning. So, and let me see now if I can share with you some samples of what occurred. Share with me. So you can see what that looks like. So they prioritize their standards. This is the work they did this summer for each of their priorities. And this is where we are at this point. So each standard has an objective and an I can statement, sort of process for what they're going to do across the classrooms in that grade level.
So then what happens next? So you mentioned team curriculum time. Is that work that's going to go on over the course of the school year?
It is. Let me show you what that looks like. So I wrote into the budget a way to have a standards aligned curriculum coach. So this curriculum coach is going to do individualized support planning in all those red places. And then I built in coverage on a tri-weekly basis. She will see a team for 2 periods at the end of each day. So what that means is, like, for example, week 1, she'll see grade 5 on Monday, Hoos and Searles, which are teachers, and then grade 6 on Friday, week 2, week 3, and then that'll repeat. And so they have that team curriculum time to look at that template, to start expanding on things we're adding to it. I didn't give the whole template all at once because it would overwhelm them. So if you look back, right now this is what's there. I plan to add vocabulary and other layers to this, but I didn't want to overwhelm them, so I'm building the template as they do the work.
And how has the reaction been to this? What are folks saying about it?
You know, it was a wonderful 3 days, and it ended with them thanking myself and the coach for this summertime dedicated to professionalism. So that was a real high for me as a principal.
That's spectacular.
Yeah.
And
so the buy-in is very positive. Everyone sees how this is applicable to them. And again, we're only touching ELA math. And then at the 5th and 6th grade level, we have a science and social studies team too, because that's the only place we're departmentalized.
So kind of by involving the teachers at the outset of this, and really as a follow-up to the work that was done in March, so they all went into this with some level of common understanding around the parts of this process, right?
Definitely. You laid the foundation March 13th. Some of them did some other curriculum work at HFM BOCES before this August 19th retreat. So they were coming in with at least foundations that were similar, and we just expanded. But we try to keep it in measurable, incremental steps so we're not overwhelming them. Because when they hear curriculum development, they panic.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
It's just teacher instinct, I think. And they see where this is going and how it applies to the classroom. We do ask that they post learning objectives, so now they have those written for the year. So they can already see that application piece, which is huge.
So any suggestions for your colleagues around the state who have kind of watched you talk through this? Anything that stands out that you might have done differently, or suggestions you have that for things that you did that worked really well?
I think suggestions-wise, just taking the time, if you have the gift of time where they're away from their classroom to do some of this work, it's important. Because it's overwhelming to be planning your daily instruction, responding to student needs, all of those different layers of being an educator during the school year. So, I am grateful that our district supported summertime where they didn't have the student contact piece to necessarily consider.
And then can we go back up and look at your schedule for how you developed that time? Um,
The
so
schedule?
yeah, because I just want to make sure. I mean, we went through that pretty quickly, so
Yep.
I just want to make sure that people really have a depth of understanding around that. So you have you budgeted for a coach for, is it 3 days a week?
No, this is actually a teacher on special assignment five
Okay.
days a week with us.
Okay, so you have a teacher on special assignment, and then this schedule, that this teacher on special assignment is having any contact time with students, or it's all working with teachers.
All curriculum development work that kind of dovetails out of her relationship with me. Because as a singleton administrator, this is work I love doing, but you and I both know one student crisis and there goes my day.
Yeah.
So just maintaining integrity to that curriculum support.
How many students in your building?
On any given day, 480 to 480 to 490.
Okay, so size of the whole district. How so? Give people a
Roughly
sense.
800, just
Okay.
under.
All right. So,
So,
I mean, not a huge district. So,
no.
I think that's important for people to know that, yeah, you can get this kind of work done even in a smaller district by, making some choices up front, and then some, what looks like to me, and I think is a lot of careful planning.
Yeah. It's been a labor of love because we have to support curriculum development. It's number one priority, but recognizing our barriers to that, which I know as a singleton administrator, I have to respond to student needs and crises. Those are priorities for any given day. So we built in a plan to have the integrity to curriculum focus using my right-hand person.
Lauren, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time to walk us through this, and good luck as the year goes on. And maybe we'll check in mid-year and just kind of see how things are going. If you've had to make any course corrections, or you can tell us about the great work that your folks have engaged in.
Excellent. I would love to sometime. Thank you.